It's 7 p.m. in Hong Kong, 3 p.m. in Dubai, and midday in the UK. Welcome to our webinar, and we have attendees joining us from UK, from Singapore. I can see Malaysia and Thailand. So today's focus is going to be on, will the Portuguese visa scheme remain? We have insights from Bernardo Mendia, who's joining us live from Lisbon today. Bernardo is president of the Portuguese Chamber of Commerce, and he's our guest speaker for today. So we'll be introducing Bernardo in a short while. In terms of what we'll do for today, just to give you a brief idea of the format, we will be taking questions, so feel free to put your questions in the chat. We'll come to those probably in about 45 minutes at the end of the webinar. We'll just give you a little bit of background on who we are as a company. For those who don't know us, we've been around for about 24 years now, and we're a global wealth management company. Our citizenship by investment team has been expanding massively over the last few years, especially since COVID. So much so that last year we accounted for about 10% of the applications for the Portuguese Golden Visa. So good to see that, yeah, we've got it right, and their clients are trusting us, and we are taking them through the program. In terms of Portugal, we don't just focus on Portugal. We focus on pretty much any country whereby you can either buy your way in to residency or citizenship. Now, of course, there's stringent rules attached, and they do vary country by country. The variables here are the time it takes to get citizenship, the cost, some of which can be a donation, or in the likes of the Portuguese Golden Visa scheme, it's by investing either real estate or a fund. But Portugal is the most popular program globally at the moment, mainly because the entry level is set at a pretty affordable 280,000 euros. Whereas if you look at other programs worldwide, Australia, for example, Canada, perhaps, they tend to be based on qualifications, experience, age, and there's limitations in terms of numbers you can get through. So if you need more information on other residency programs, such as Caribbean, USA, Canada, we can cover those individually. So without too much me bumbling along, I will just hand over to Bernardo. Let me just change the slide here. And Bernardo can introduce himself.
Thank you very much, Chris, and congratulations for the good initiative. We here in Portugal are, of course, very happy that the program in Portugal is being promoted. And let me just add, besides, before I begin introducing myself and the Chamber, I would like to say that besides what you've mentioned, which is the investment threshold to obtain a residence permit, it seems to be very important for investors, the 7-day per year requirement, or to stay in Portugal only. So that requirement, I don't think there is any country competing with a 7-day only requirement, or 14 days in a period of 2 years. Also the family reunification, it's also very important, but above all, it's the wonderful Portuguese people. So I think that's what makes people come to Portugal also. And so let me introduce myself. And so I am a president of the Portugal Hong Kong Chamber of Commerce and Industry. We are based here in Portugal, in Lisbon, although we also have one of our vice presidents is also in Hong Kong. Besides our Chamber of Commerce, which is a private entity, Portugal also has a honorary consulate in Hong Kong, and we have a general consulate in Macau, as you know, and mostly for historical reasons, and contrary to most countries, our main consulate general is in Macau and not in Hong Kong. But we do have a honorary consulate there. We have an office, but most of the administrative functions that a consulate has to do is done in Macau, of course. Having said this, just to tell a little bit more about the entities that I am representing, I am also honorary secretary of the Federation of Hong Kong Business Associations Worldwide, which is an entity where we are also very active, namely here in Portugal. I am also Secretary General of the Portugal Chamber of Commerce and Industry, among other institutional roles. But today you didn't come here to listen about me. You are more interested in Portugal. As I said, we're very happy for that, of course. And so what I would like to very briefly explain to you, if you don't, starting by the basics, Portugal, the Portuguese government has enacted a law in the end of 2012 that to attract foreign investors to Portugal. The main objective of this is to bring money from outside the Portuguese system to the Portuguese system. And in exchange, the Portuguese government will give a residence permit. As you know, right now there are a number of ways of obtaining, but more than 95%, if not close to 99%, are concentrated in two channels to obtain the residence permit. One is investment in real estate, simple put, and the other one is investment through funds. These funds often also invest in real estate. So I won't go to a lot of details on this. Maybe Chris can go into these details, or in the Q&A, of course, I am available to provide you information according to what you need and according to my knowledge. But it's better you talk with Chris. He is the specialist regarding the technical details. And so, what really I think it is important for you to understand and to know from me is that besides getting a residence permit, I think this is the most important, is you would enter a dynamic technological market, which is Portugal, where it is not only about the quality of life, the security, the good weather, but it's also, there are opportunities here in Portugal to have your own business. Nowadays, more than ever, because any one of us can be based remotely and work. But not only, because if you come to Portugal, you have access to the European market. As you know, we are part of the European Union. And so to have access to this market can be very advantageous depending on the business you're on or the business you would like to develop. Even locally, cities compete between each other to attract new talents and new companies that eventually will create jobs and will bring wealth to locals. So this is not something new for you. I'm sure this happens all over the world like this, but it's just that Portugal is particularly keen, and in the last 10 years we have made a huge bet on particularly on the technology sector, startups. So the ecosystem is really vibrant and welcoming. And so we not only have the human resources for working, but we have the infrastructure, we have the technology, which are all in place for that. So this is the main notes I would like to begin this seminar with. And of course, I will be available to reply to all your questions and Chris' questions as well. And above all, I hope you choose Portugal. And I would like to assure you that by experience, I can tell you, because we deal with a lot of people moving to Portugal. We organize lots of events. And so instead of finishing right away, I can give you an example. This weekend, we will take the Hong Kong community that is already based here. We will take them for a weekend in the countryside to try the local culinary and see local art and music shows. So we try to keep also this community busy and together here. So thank you very much, and I look forward for your questions. Chris?
Fantastic. Thank you, Bernardo. Really interesting that. And I think obviously the number of questions that we have a lot from participants or soon to be participants in the scheme is the security of it. And really just to give some context to that, just flicking back to an earlier slide here. Earlier in the year, there's been a number of headlines in the international press and in the citizenship by investment space about when the Golden Visa process will end. And given that some countries have been forced to take their schemes off the list over the last 4 or 5 years, I thought it's worthwhile, Bernardo, just exploring that a little bit more detail in terms of how you, as someone for the Portuguese Chamber of Commerce in Portugal, feels about the security of the scheme, and will it end?
Well, starting by the security of the scheme, it's actually Portugal, as you know, it's open and has no restriction regarding origin of the investment. And the reason why I bring this up is because the Golden Visa is a scheme that has a lot of checks and balances. So it's even safer that if you just come here and invest without being through the channel Golden Visa. Because if you invest through the scheme Golden Visa, then you need to present a number of documents, source of funds, and a number of things that make it be much more scrutinized. And so that is not a good reason, would not be a good reason to end or limit the Golden Visa. Now, of course, the Golden Visa in the last 10 years, we have had it for 10 years now, has gone through changes and adjustments, which are only natural because we started from zero and we learn as it goes. But it is not planned to be ended. And in Portugal, it's not going, by the initiative of Portugal, it would never end, because, as I said in the beginning, these are the type of funds that we need. Unfortunately, next years, they will not be good to anyone. So we will keep needing them a lot. So, and it's important. It brings more multiculturality to the Portuguese people, but it also brings financial help, because it's new money. It's more taxes that are being paid in Portugal. So it only has benefits for us. And so how could I see this ending? Only by the European Union. But on the other end, there are two aspects that we should discuss. One is that a lot of countries would have to agree with this, which I don't think is the case, because right now it's the other way around. We compete for foreign investment between each other. And On the other end, even if they do this, even if they would, if this would be approved by European Commission and Parliament, then would have to be ratified by each national parliament. So we're talking about a process that takes, if all goes very well, it would take 5 years. So we would get a notice of 5 years in advance. So I'm not worried at all.
Fantastic. So what you're saying in summary, Portugal has benefited enormously from inward investment. And I think I remember seeing the figures around 5 billion euros have come into Portugal over the last 10 years.
More than that, yes.
More.
I think 6.5.
Okay, great. So clearly there's benefit from an economic point of view. And as you
from
said,
a social point of view as well, because it's multiculturality that enters the country, and this will inevitably have results because, well, multiculturality only brings benefit to the local people. They will see the world without leaving Portugal, more chances.
Yeah, so it's very pro-immigration, and it does have a doors open policy subject to the criteria being fulfilled. And just to confirm what that criteria is, essentially it's very simple. It's, have you got the money, i.e. minimum 280,000 euros? Have you got the motivation? The motivation really is to get through 5 years worth of golden visa renewals. And then on the 6th year, that's your first trigger point for being able to apply for Portuguese passport or permanent residency. And of course, once you're through the program on year 6, having an EU passport gives you free movement of people. You can work, you can live, you can retire, you can study anywhere in Europe. Whereas for the first 5 years, you're restricted to Portugal, including accessing the healthcare system from day one in Portugal. Again, study, retire, stay indefinitely. So,
work.
And work, yes. Thanks, Bernardo. So it's clear that it's here to stay is the answer that you're given. In terms of politics, can you just give us a quick insight into what's happening politically? There's been elections earlier this year in Portugal. Can you tell us a little bit about the party that's now in power and their appetite to continue with the Golden Visa scheme and any political issues you see ahead internally?
Okay, so just one comment regarding one thing you said about the immigration, and it's also important to explain that Portugal is actually a country of immigrants. So we send a lot of people out of the country, and they also come back. And besides that, it's part of our history to go out, for the last 500 years, and that's Portugal is known worldwide for the discoveries period. So I just want to explain that we're very welcoming, and we're already a very multicultural society. And one of the, I think, key traits of the Portuguese people is that they are very welcoming, independently of the origin. For example, one thing that is that in general people always like to highlight is the fact that Portuguese people speak in English in general. And even when their English is not great, it is really nice to see that they all make an effort to speak in English. There's no, there's always a good atmosphere. So that makes it very nice to for foreigners, because they feel welcomed, of course. And regarding your question about political situation, yes. So now we have a majority in the parliament. So it's actually the history of the political history of Portugal since 1974. It's between two parties. It's either one or the other that is in power. So it's quite stable, and they both agree on the Golden Visa. So, it was actually the three governments back that the Golden Visa program was created, and They on 2016, the current government won the first time, if I'm not mistaken, it was 2016, and now again 2022. So they have been no, sorry, 2021, and so they have they continued with a couple of adjustments which are only natural, but they will keep it, of course. Yes, we have, as a Chamber of Commerce, we have regular meetings with the Ministry of Internationalization, and there's no such idea of finishing. So this is not, we need this program. It's important for our country, for our economy, and it will continue.
Good. So really, whichever political party get in next, and albeit I think there's 3.5 years to go before the next election. Is that right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
3 years.
3.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we have really a 5-year timeline from the EU. If there's any changes, there's notification, there's consultancy amongst other EU member states first. Mm-hmm. Politically, internally, parties are in agreement that the Golden Visa scheme is beneficial for Portugal and is likely to remain. And in terms of one final question before we go on to my section, Bernardo, in terms of the opportunities available at the moment, can you tell us a little bit about the geography of Portugal in relation to where investors can buy? Because there's obviously been some changes earlier this year in terms of the January the 1st changes where investors now can buy. Can you just tell us a little about the geography and those areas that are Golden Visa eligible?
Okay. So if the investment is done through funds, it's not really important because they're investing in participation units of a fund. If they are investing in real estate, because what happens is sometimes they invest, the investors invest in funds that in turn invest in real estate. Okay, so this is one situation. The other situation is investing directly in real estate. Currently, they can invest in commercial properties anywhere in the country. So that would be commercial. If they want to invest in residential, they are limited to certain areas, which were the areas that had less investment before this amendment to the law. So, for example, and this is what people watching this will relate to, they would not be able to invest right now in Lisbon, Porto, or Algarve, which are the more famous areas, but they still can invest in the Portuguese islands, in the interior, in certain specific areas in the coast, but few. So most of the coast is off limits right now for residential properties. It's still open for commercial properties.
Fantastic. So good explanation there in terms of where is eligible. And from my experience, a lot of investors, a lot of people going through the program tend to look at this unemotionally. They tend to look at it as a way to get the Portugal passport, which is the objective here. So yeah, geography comes into it a lot less than you would ordinarily have if you were buying a residential or investment property for yourself. So what we'll do, just as a reminder, do keep your questions coming in on the Q&A. We'll be going through those in about 10-15 minutes, and Bernardo will be back to answer those questions. What I want to do now is just give you an overview of the points to consider when looking at Golden Visa investment opportunities. And we'll just talk about the pros and cons of each route. And then we're going to channel our time into just exploring one of the available options today. There's been a few questions in terms of the costings. So how much is the Portuguese government going to charge you for this? What are the tax implications? And ultimately, what are our fees as well for doing this? So first of all, this is a very basic sheet, just showing you on this A column here, the variables to consider. So obvious one at the top, how much do you want to deploy to this? The key consideration is you're deploying capital for a minimum of 6 years, potentially 7, depending on how long it takes you to get through the program. The two different classifications here, we can call it developer financing, we can call it investing in commercial property. Essentially, these properties here offer a low risk, sometimes low return way of getting through the program. So we'll explore these in a bit more detail shortly, but essentially these are ways of buying into Golden Visa eligible property from a very well-known, well-respected developer that has a track record going back 30 years. And their track record, not just in Portugal, it's in the US and Canada, where they first started their business, which is citizenship by investment. So EB5 program for the US, Canada as well, and recently Portugal. The company's called Mercan, M-E-R-C-A-N. What we like about them is they publish everything. So for every project they make available to investors, we can see the cash flow each year, how much investment is going into the refurbishment or the development. We can see how much is coming out in terms of profit. We can see how much, or how long it will take to recoup investors' money. So the format is a cookie cutter format that's replicated now over 14 properties that they've facilitated, they've constructed in Portugal. The main focus here is the branded hotels they work with. So tends to be Marriott, Hilton, Intercontinental, well-known 4-star hotels. So there's 2 available at the moment. We're going to focus on one in Lisbon, which is the Skyview Hotel, which is priced at 350,000. So we'll talk you through that. The other types of properties to invest in are more properties where you own the title deed. So the same as the property that you live in, if you own that property, you have a title deed proving ownership. So the difference with these types of properties is potentially you will benefit from appreciation of the unit. Secondly, they tend to pay a yield or an income out. And thirdly, they tend to be more short-term rental touristic apartments. So it could be serviced apartments, could be Airbnb style properties, or could be hotels. So investors purchase a room in a complex, a yield is paid out. Now, unlike investment properties, the yield is yours to keep. In the Portugal Golden Visa, there's obviously costs to go through the program. So the yields are primarily there to offset some of the costs from the Portugal government in terms of scheme fees. So more information is available on this. We do have a project, I have to mention, that's launching next month, which is this one here. It's from a developer that we've been working with now for some time called Excellium. And they're actually got a specific offer for our clients here, whereby they're paying the stamp duty and the IMT for investors. So it makes it a very attractive investment from a cost point of view. So that can be a saving over time. The added benefit here is as well, there's appreciation, and also from year 6 as well, there's a share of the hotel's profits. So it's a chance to make a little bit more money on the journey. But what we'll do is just give a quick overview of a Mercan property. So going back to the first one we spoke about, this is a 4-star branded hotel. Mercan publish everything here. So these are some quite interesting stats of the number of participants that have been through the scheme when it started in 2012. So no surprise, 2 people went into it in 2012, and you can see it escalated. So the latest figures here, 1,337 applicants went through the program last year. In terms of nationalities, this has changed since we started it, or since Portugal started it. It used to be a lot of mainland Chinese. Now it is Americans, Indians, Brits are the three main nationalities. But in terms of the Merkin property that is just launched this month, this is the construction of the hotel in Lisbon. And this is called, it's a Skyview Hotel. In terms of location, it is a very good location between the Old Town and the CBD area. And of course, good proximity to the airport, so really aimed at business travelers. It's all Golden Visa eligible, so investors put their money into the project. It will take 2 years to construct, and then on the third year, once the hotel is open for business, that's the point investors do start to get a return. So it's a fixed or a guaranteed rental return of 3% paid out on year 3, year 4, year 5, and so on. In terms of number of investors, there's 210 allowed to go into this, each of which putting in 350,000 euros. This is another offer whereby the developer does pay for the IMT. So this does save 6.5% as opposed to buying property direct. Of course, part of the Golden Visa process, you do have to spend time in Portugal. Unlike other countries, it's only 14 days every 2 years. But this hotel does allow you free stay. Or in fact, any Merkin property, you can use the hotels that Merkin have already built to have your 7 days free, either per year or roll them up for 14 days every 2 years. What we really like about Merkin is their published track record. So this slide here shows you all of the hotels that have been built. So these are operational across Porto, across Lisbon. So we have Hilton here, and we have other sub-brands of Marriott. It also shows all of the projects that are in construction stage here as well. So some beautiful period buildings that have been restored and refurbished, which of course meets the Golden Visa requirements, and some new builds as well. So we'll just lastly, before we go on to the Q&A, we'll just go through some costings. So to get you through the Golden Visa scheme, what do you need to do in terms of payment? Who do you pay money to? How do you get your money back? And what are the taxes and the government charges? So we've taken an example here of a family of 4. That's the typical kind of common number that we see through this scheme. So the 3 components to this are our costs, taxes from the Portuguese government, and Golden Visa scheme, Portuguese government Golden Visa scheme costs. So the first thing that we request in order to kick this off for a family of 4 is to get our legal fees paid. So this is legal and service charge or professional fees. We get to work on opening your bank account in Portugal. We get to work on getting your tax number. That's essential before you can move on to the next stage. Without that, there is no way you can purchase the real estate. So typically that happens in week 1. We've got a really good implementation team based in Dubai, Vietnam, and Hong Kong. Generally speaking, it takes us about 6 weeks, maybe 2 months max to get that bank account open and to get you the tax number. Once that is done, then we use a Portuguese law firm. In fact, Merkin have their own in-house law firm. So the purchase of the investment is then facilitated through the Portuguese law firm. So the 350,000 euros is paid. There's a small amount of stamp duty here, but the big saving here is the IMT. So the IMT taxes is a tax when you buy property. So in this case, Merkin pay for that because it's part of the overall development costs. So the second invoice there, and then the final point is usually on month 11, once the application's been submitted for you, your children, spouse, that's the trigger point. You will get a letter from the SEF, who the Immigration Authority in Portugal, and they will invite you over to go for your biometric, get your biometric ID card done in Lisbon. You'll be greeted by a member of the law firm, and they'll guide you through the steps you need to do, usually a few hours in the immigration building in Lisbon. And then the Golden Visa fees are paid, and that's your start of your 5-year ticking clock to go through the Golden Visa program. So if you applied today, let's just say beginning of November, hypothetically, likelihood is it would be November 2023 when your 5-year ticking clock starts for the program. In terms of this property, it does produce that income. So we've shown here income paid for 5 years. It may be less if you get through the program quicker. So don't forget, this is rental return from year 3 onwards. So year 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 7, depending on how long it takes you to get through. So you do get income from this. That does offset some of the Golden Visa fees. And the Golden Visa fees here are renewable every 2 years. So for a family of 4, that's €16,000 on year 2, year 4, another €16,000. And then on the 5th year, after 5 years of Golden Visa completion, you could then be in a position to apply for a Portuguese passport or permanent residency. Typically, that could take 6-12 months to actually process. Once you've got the passport in your hand, you're then a EU citizen. You've got the right to work, travel, set up a business, use the healthcare system. Kids go to EU universities. Everything with an EU passport is very easy. So at that point, you can then apply to Merkin to buy back the investment from you. Their track record is phenomenal. They've had 100% of their buybacks throughout the US and Portugal paid back. They take 180 days to pay back the money. So in this example here, you'd get a credit to your Portuguese bank account for €350,000, which is the same as your purchase price. So in this example, the number I really want you to take away here is the cost for a family of 4 over a typical investment cycle to get an EU passport, a Portuguese passport, net of your buyback would be about €45,000. So as I said before, if you've got the motivation, you've got the money, and you've got the time to get through the program, it's yours to take. So we'll leave the Merkin presentation there. I can see we've got quite a few questions coming in on the Q&A. So this is where Bernardo and I are going to answer them as best as we can. There's some of these that might be a little bit more offline, so we can just follow these up with you directly. So sorry if we can't get around to all of you, but we've got about 5 minutes left. So we've covered lawyers' fees. We've covered expected return. Let's have a look. So here's one. You mentioned the Golden Visa is valid for Portugal in the first 5 years, and that can you live and work in the Schengen visa area? So I think Bernardo, you can answer that one.
No, in the first 5 years, of course you can travel, but you cannot work. I mean, you cannot have a work for a company, you know. That's different. But you can, in Portugal, you can establish your company and you can sell to all Europe, of course.
Yes. So Portugal Golden Visa gives you the right to work, study, healthcare, retire in Portugal on year 6, or when you've got PR or citizenship. That's when you can freely roam around Europe.
Exactly.
So Geography question here for you, Bernardo. What's Evora like in the middle? So maybe you can just explain where that is and what type of city that is, and kind of the types of businesses there.
Well, I'm sorry, which city did you mention?
Evora.
Évora, yes. It's
Evora,
a very nice city. Yes. It is a very nice city located in Alentejo, 1 hour and a half from Lisbon. It's during the summer it's hot because it's in the interior. It does qualify for the Golden Visa through investment in real estate. It's very traditional, great restaurants, and in Alentejo region, it is probably the most important city.
Okay, and linking that with another question, how does that compare with the Algarve? Obviously, Algarve, for me, that's a holiday destination. If you're buying a property with the anticipation of making money, would the Algarve be a better place to park your cash in terms of the growth related to tourism?
Yeah, exactly. You touched the point. Algarve is based on tourism. That's the main industry that Algarve has. While Évora, it leans toward agriculture. So you have the best wine, you have very good olive oil, and more. But agriculture is the main activity in Évora. And I would say in principle, but it must be case by case, but in principle, Algarve, it's more dynamic and it has more activity. But this must be seen case by case, depending on the opportunities that the investor has on hand, of course.
Yeah, but I think what you're saying there, the Algarve is a bigger geographical area where a lot of growth and a lot of the economy comes through tourism. So if it's a numbers game, yeah, there's more people there, and there's more businesses there.
Especially these days, right? With COVID and everything, where now it's actually in Portugal is fully recovered. So we had a better year this year than 2019. But during the years of COVID, with little traveling in Algarve, it was a big problem. Like everywhere in the world, that was more dependent on the tourism.
Yeah. Okay. Now, a question, I don't know whether it's your area, I can answer it, but I'll throw it to you just to see if you can. The non-habitual tax regime. Is this in your comfort area or not?
Not comfort. What is the question?
So maybe if I kind of expand on it. So the non-habitual tax regime, NHR tax regime. So maybe if I answer this. So in terms of taxation, you're not going to be considered tax resident in Portugal unless you spend more than 183 days in the country. So less than 183 days in the country, no tax considerations apart from anything generated in Portugal, i.e. a property. You will pay tax on that property's income. If you are in Portugal more than 183 days, Portugal has a very interesting piece of tax legislation that really has been in force to attract talent from overseas in. And effectively, they're giving you significant tax breaks on overseas income for the first 10 years. So we can go into those on an individual basis for John, who's asked that question, but keen just to get through as many questions as we can. We've got a few minutes left here, so I'm just going to rattle through some of these. Just linking that to another question from Jude here in terms of the personal tax implications. I think we've covered that. So there's no tax implications unless you spend 183 days or more. If you do, there are things that you can do to mitigate or remove that tax burden. Jude also asked, what is the tax for rental? Great question. It's a flat 28%, 28. So regardless of how much income yeah, 28%. We help file taxes. So we do everything to get you through the Golden Visa program. We also do everything once you've got the property to help you if there's any management with that property. We don't want our clients, there's no need to be responsible for breakages, for damages, for upgrades. All of that's taken care of by our developers. So the offering here is one of hands-free investment that takes you through the whole 6 years. Here's one for you, Bernardo. Can you work when the Golden Visa is approved?
If you can work, of course. Mm-hmm.
Yep, easy one. So just Mark asks a question about the example I showed with Merkin. So that had no capital appreciation. So the developer financing ones don't, whereas the other investments, say from Excellium, there's another one with residential. There's also one in Lisbon, which is Airbnb style apartments. They would have appreciation and they would have a yield as well. So we can cover that offline. So yeah, I think we kind of through most of those questions. If there's any that I haven't got around to answering directly, apologies, and I'll reach out to you, or feel free to drop me a message and we can just pick up and go through those individually. But I think coming back to the webinar's original opening statement, will the Portuguese Golden Visa scheme last or will it remain? I think the key takeaways we've learned today, the appetite internally from Portugal's government, both past governments and current governments have all been very positive, and the fact that it's raised, what was the figure, Bernardo? Was it 6.2 billion?
It's I said 6.5, but I noticed in one of the slides you showed it's 6.4.
Okay, yeah. It's raised a lot of money. So big vested interest in Portugal, keeping the Golden Visa scheme. I think one interesting point, just looking at a different country that has changed their rules or will be changing their rules soon, and that's, I believe, Greece. Greece have actually pushed up their minimum. So from next year, Greece will be 500,000. So I don't believe, Bernardo, there's any appetite to change the minimum. Would you have an inkling on that, or?
No, because it has just been adjusted, started January 1st. So I don't think it will be, and it was the new government, so it wouldn't make any sense to change it again. They just changed it. Yeah.
So I think the only threat that really lies here is from the European Parliament. And given that the EU Parliament is a huge behemoth that takes a long time to make decisions, we're perhaps 5 years plus away from that. But the key here is anyone who embarks on the program, as soon as you have your Golden Visa application not accepted, but acknowledged, that's the point you're in the system and you're grandfathered in. So given that the last changes that we saw earlier this year, we had a couple of years notice on them. So as far as visibility goes, we have a very clear runway ahead over the next year, over the next few years for people that want to embark on the program. So in summary, thanks for joining us, wherever you are around Asia or UK or elsewhere. We will make this available on the Holborn website. Just to show you briefly, we do have a lot more educational webinars on the website. So it's holbornassets.com is the website here. Our services, if you go to webinars and events, you'll see there's someone on there, there's crypto here. This is one that I did from a Portuguese law firm back in May. In terms of us, always encourage you to review whoever you're dealing with, whether it's an airline, insurance company, financial services company. This is where clients have reviewed us. We're pretty happy to say we've got 1,900 positive client reviews now. So you can read all of them: the good, the bad, and the ugly. 2% bad, 85% good, 12% great. So I'll leave it on that note. But Bernardo, thanks very much for joining. And as I say, we'll follow up with clients individually for getting all questions answered. So thank you.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you everybody interested in Portugal.
Fantastic.